How do you determine the right business model or the right way of doing business? Why are other companies in your industry succeeding while you struggle to succeed? In this video, we're going to look at industry best practices. What are they? Why are they so important? And how you go about finding them and implementing them. If you know you're in the right business, but suspect that you might not be doing it the right way because you are struggling to succeed, then this video is for you. Transforming your business from struggling to success and from success to significance. In previous videos, I said that all Christian businesses that struggle to succeed are struggling for one of three reasons. They were in the wrong business or doing the wrong thing. They were in the right business for the wrong reasons or the wrong motivation, or they were in the right business using the wrong business model or doing it the wrong way. But how do you determine the right way or the best way to do something? This is an important question that relates to both your company's business model and your strategic plan that will guide you to where you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. Is the best way always the best way of doing business? Is the best way for one company the best way for all companies? Does it differ by product or service offering? Can the best way be improved upon? And if so, does the best way even exist? Is it possible to determine the best way without analyzing every conceivable way of doing something? Who determines the best way and where is it defined? I am not trying to be philosophical here, but these are questions that often arise when discussing various company business models and strategic planning frameworks. The bottom line is that in order to discern the right way or the wrong way of doing business, we need to define what we mean when we say doing things the right way. God loves to give wisdom and understanding to His children. He wants them to succeed. If we will take the time to listen, He will give us witty ideas and inventions that will allow us to go further in business than others have obtained. If there is a believer's edge in the kingdom of heaven over our non-believer competitors, it should be in the area of divine revelation. In my book, Kingdom Business Success, and in my video titled Prayer for Money and Provision, I tell about various ways God speaks to us and practical exercises to learn how to discern His voice to receive wisdom, understanding, and knowledge on how to do business. Therefore, the best way to do anything in business is to do it the way the Lord reveals it to you. We have many clients who have received revelation from the Lord on how to accomplish certain tasks and solve problems that were often considered unsolvable by their competitors. Many times, the wisdom of the Lord seems counterintuitive. Like salmon, He may tell you to swim upstream while the rest of the fish is swimming downstream. However, when you step out in obedience and do it His way, you will always find His way is the best way, at least the best way for you at that moment of time. But in the absence of hearing directly from the Lord, how do you determine the best way to do something? Industry best practices is a term that is seldom defined, but frequently used to describe a methodology, architecture, or practice that is a preferred method to accomplish something successfully in the business world. But where do industry best practices come from? Why are they important? And how do they relate to business models and strategic planning? Some industry best practices come from regulatory and standard bodies. One example would be the Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, GAAP, developed and maintained by the Financial Accounting and Standards Board, FASB. Other examples include the use of International Organization for Standardization, ISO 9000 Quality Management Systems in Manufacturing, or the International Building Codes used in architecting and building homes, which the International Code Council governs. However, when people use the term best practices in business operations and strategic planning, they are generally not referring to methodologies and practices that come from those standards bodies. Then what are they talking about, and where do these industry best practices come from? How are they discovered, and where are they documented? It's been my experience that most of these industry best practices come from the Pareto principle. That's right, the 80-20 rule. If you remember the analogy of throwing spaghetti at the wall I gave in a previous video, we discovered that not every idea has an equal chance of working, and when an idea did work, only a small percentage of those worked well. The same can be said about how a business is organized and operated. There are only so many ways you can do something, and even a smaller percentage of those ways that will work well. Let me give 2 examples. One of the first corporate jobs I had after leaving the Navy was with a small computer security company with approximately 50 employees. The accounting office consisted of 3 people, including the CFO. One day, when in their office, I noticed they had 6 desks, but only 3 people in the office. I thought that seemed strange and asked why they needed more desks than they had people. One of the accountants politely explained to me that they used 1 desk for payroll, 1 for accounts payable, and 1 for accounts receivable. They processed those functions on different days of the week and used the different desks to keep the paperwork separate and to keep them from being distracted. I quickly asked them, why can't you just do this at 1 desk? That way they wouldn't have to move from desk to desk to perform those different tasks. Well, the look they gave me and the response I received told me that they considered my suggestion ludicrous. Over the next 30 years, I worked with many large and small companies, including Fortune 100 companies, but what I discovered was that the basic model of keeping those 3 accounting functions separate, either with separate desks, separate offices, or separate departments, sometimes on separate floors, remained the same in every single company, or at least in every successful company. It was a model that was used by the smallest and the largest of companies. It was industry best practice. So how did each company know how to set up their accounting office? Where did they learn it from? Since almost every company does it that way now, it's easy to see that new accounting people would learn this method on the job. But how was it discovered in the early days of business accounting? How did it become one of the industry best practices of accounting? Did they teach it in the accounting school? Probably not. I believe they all discovered it separately because there are only a few ways they could have organized their department and functions, and even fewer of those that would have worked well. I already mentioned that I spent many years doing business development in both government contracting and commercial business sectors. During that time, I've seen the sales and marketing departments of the largest and the smallest of companies. I've worked with small companies with one-man sales and marketing departments and with Fortune 100 companies with several hundred people in sales and marketing. I discovered that all of them are organized similarly to each other on a functional basis, very similar to the rationale used by the accounting offices. They may have organized their functions differently, but all successful companies execute the same sales and marketing functions extremely well. Now, whenever I'm asked to analyze a company, I always look to see how it compares with other companies, especially those in their same industry. When I see differences in how they are organized or the functions they are performing, I take note but don't necessarily say anything until I find a problem with that department. With one company, I saw that their sales and marketing department was not organized the way other companies are organized. They weren't performing all the same functions that the successful companies were performing. At first, I didn't say anything because they seemed to be satisfied with the results they were getting from their sales team. However, once I discovered that the sales team was not performing well, I spoke up. I told them how other companies set up their sales and marketing department, the different roles and the various functions required to be performed successfully. I was attempting to get them to adapt industry best practices in their sales and marketing department in order to become as successful as their competitors. As a general rule, you need to become as good as your competitors before you can become better than them. So how does one determine the latest and greatest industry best practices for their industry and which one should be implemented? The subject of studying your competition to understand their strengths and weaknesses is known as competitive intelligence and is addressed in my book, Strategic Planning for Kingdom Businesses, and also in a video entitled Competitive Intelligence. By studying your competitors, you can discover their secret sauce. In what areas do they excel and why? Why are they successful? How are they organized? How do they perform their basic business functions? Perhaps you can order their products and services and assess the experience of being one of their customers. In the analysis of their strengths and secret sauce, you may find they have implemented some industry best practices that you might want to include in your business. If you really want to ensure you are implementing the right industry best practices for your industry, here are some other suggestions. Conferences, seminars, and trade shows. These events generally include speakers from your industry who discuss their methodologies. They are there to present their secret sauce for success. If you learn to ask the right questions, you will learn why your competitors are so successful. Trade magazines and websites. Similar to the conferences, someone is trying to present a message on how to achieve success in your industry. As you start studying your competitors, you will find that the successful ones are doing something in common. Find out what it is and adapt it to your company. Networking. Be intentional to network with industry experts, customers, competitors, suppliers, distributors, and current and former employees of those companies. Learn to ask the right questions, and they will tell you why some companies are extremely successful and why others are struggling. In my book, Strategic Planning for Kingdom Businesses, I tell how to ask the right questions once you meet these industry subject matter experts. Although industry best practices are important, it's the execution of the best practices that is often more important than finding the best way of doing something. This is often overlooked by academians and management consultants when arguing over the best methodologies for strategic planning. They seem to think that if all companies perform the same function, they should be performing them equally well. Only by doing something radically different, like Uber, can one company truly become the leader in an industry. In my experience, this is not true, and this is where there is a big difference between theory and the real business world. Take customer service, for example. Many companies have distinguished themselves from their competitors through excellent customer service. Zappos, Amazon, Lexus, Nordstrom, Disney Cruise Lines, and T-Mobile are some examples. These companies are known for being the best in their industry in customer service. Most of those companies are at or near the top of their respective markets or industries. You can be sure their competitors also perform the same customer service functions, but these companies do it exceptionally well. That is what made them great. Not doing something different, but doing the same thing exceptionally well. In my consulting experience, I've had the privilege of seeing many large and small companies up close. I've gone behind the curtain and been allowed to see their true strengths and weaknesses. I cannot remember one company that implemented every best practice of this industry. Typically, the larger the company, the harder it is to adopt and implement new practices. The largest companies are often steeped in legacy processes and systems that makes it difficult or impossible to adopt better methodologies. More important than implementing industry best practices, I've never seen one company that executed everything well. They all had room to improve on their execution of the basic functions as well as the execution of industry best practices. It is in this area of execution that is often overlooked in strategic planning. You must be doing the right things, but you also need to do them with a spirit of excellence if you're going to grow and become the dominant player in your industry. I believe that excellent execution of applicable industry best practices is a very formidable strategy in itself. If you're always studying your competitors to understand why they are successful and adopt the industry best practices that they have adopted and learn to execute every aspect of your business with excellence, you will become the leader in your industry. You will not need to come up with a radically different blue ocean approach to business growth. In addition to adopting industry best practices and execution with excellence, if you learn to adopt your customer's perception and value of everything that pertains to your business and always look for new ways to deliver greater value to your customer, you will become the leader that everyone else in your industry is trying to imitate. In summary, the key to success is to study your competitors and industry to understand why they are successful and what industry best practices they are implementing. Then, implement the same industry best practices in your business, but make sure you're doing them exceptionally well. Make sure you realize that it's your customers' needs and pain points that ultimately determine what and how you can deliver the greatest value to them through your products and services. If you do this, eventually you will become the leader in your industry, and as Proverbs 22 verse 29 says, you will be the one that stands before kings of the earth to tell them about your king and his kingdom. If this video has been of some help to you, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. If there are any other topics you'd like to see discussed relating to industry best practices, please let me know. Until then, be blessed and keep doing business His way.